Good evening. Welcome to the City Council meeting of January 2nd, 2019. Before we have the roll call, we have some important information of swearing in our new council members. So, City Clerk Lombard, and there you go.
Sorry,
Just figuring out which way you guys are going, that's all.
Raise your right hand, say after me. I state your name, do solemnly swear
I, William Lynch, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully and impartially
that I will faithfully and impartially
discharge and perform all duties incumbent upon me
discharge all duties incumbent upon me
as city councillor at large,
as City Councilor at large,
according to the best of my knowledge and abilities,
best of my knowledge and abilities,
agreeably to the rules and regulations
agreeably to the rules and regulations
of the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts,
laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts,
and the city of Easthampton,
and the City of Easthampton.
so help me God.
So help me God.
There you go. Congratulations.
Sign the book.
Sign the book. Welcome aboard.
Welcome aboard. Yes.
Welcome. Thank you. Welcome. Congratulations. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thanks, man.
Okay. Can we have the new 2019 roll call?
Peg Coniff. Salem Derby.
Present.
Omar Gomez.
Here.
J.P. Kaczynski.
Here.
William Lynch the fourth.
Here.
Township Child.
He's here too.
Joe McCoy.
Here.
Tom Peak.
Here.
Dan Rist.
Here.
Owen Zaret.
Present.
Okay, could we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge
To
allegiance
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can I have a motion for the approval of the minutes of December 19th?
I haven't done them yet. I haven't done them yet.
Oh, yeah.
I don't have
She never
them
said
yet.
that, yeah.
Okay, so I guess
Sorry.
we'll withdraw your.
I'm withdrawing my motion to approve minutes.
No minutes.
Didn't have time.
Public speak time. Is there anyone here from the public who would like to address the council for something other than what's on the public hearing? This is your opportunity, so please come to the podium and state your name and address. Okay, and not seeing any, we can move on then. Communications from elected officials, boards, and committees. Just may start beginning with, we have our new council member. Welcome, Bill Lynch. And you'll see we got the new city councils, the two that his appointment affects are finance and public safety. So both those committees at your earliest opportunity, you guys could reorganize. So you know who the chair and clerk will be. That'd be great. Also a reminder from the city clerk to please check clerks to make sure your minutes are up to date. I think some of the minutes are falling behind, so double check to see where minutes are for subcommittees are. Additional correspondence, Councilor Zaret, I believe you wanted to say something.
Thank you, President McCoy. And official welcome also, Councilor Lynch. I knew we'd find our way here together at some point. I'm sure most of you are aware about the vandalism at the Pascomic Conservation Area at the Edward J. Dwyer Trail a few days ago. It was in Mass Live. I appreciate the effort of the Pascomic Trust and Marty Klein to expeditiously clean up what was essentially anti-Semitic spray paint and vandalism written on signs and trees around there. The city of Easthampton that I love, and I'm sure all of us love, has no place for this type of behavior. We must foster a community that's inclusive and look to educate our community, our children, that hatred has no place here. I've been communicating with Liz Friedman of WeStandTogether.org throughout the day, and I have a statement to read from her, as well as we'll be posting a petition for our community to stand together on this issue on social media later today. And her statement is as follows. We stand together against hate in Easthampton, Massachusetts. We are upset and disgusted by the show of hatred in our community of Easthampton, Mass. The anti-Semitic, misogynistic, and racist slurs that were painted on trees and signs in the Edward J. Dwyer Conservation Area are offensive and do not reflect the welcoming and inclusive community of Easthampton, and are not welcome in our community. We stand together with all people of Greater Easthampton in saying that anti-Semitism, misogyny, racism, and hatred have no place in our community. We know that when we are quiet, those who promote hate think that it's okay to do so. We want to be perfectly clear. Hatred has no home in Easthampton. Thank you.
All right, thank you for those
Here, here.
words. Any other comment? Oh, Councilor Gomez.
Thank you, Mr. President. Solamente quiero decir, y lo voy a decir en español porque quiero que todo el mundo sepa, que esta comunidad, aquí todo el mundo es bienvenido. Esta comunidad no le gusta el odio, esta comunidad es para todo el mundo. Yo me siento muy honrado de participar en esta comunidad y me siento muy orgulloso de ser parte de ella. Aquí todos, pero todos son bienvenidos. I just want to say that in English now. This community is for everybody. It's not just for a group of people. Everybody here is welcoming. This community is for everybody. Just remember that. It's just a tiny group. It's not even a group. It's just a few people that are making these kind of comments, and that doesn't reflect of the people of Easthampton. We are a welcoming people, and everybody, doesn't matter your language, doesn't matter how you look, your color, you're welcome here.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Okay, any other comments the councilors would like to make before notifications, before we move on to mayor communications? No? Okay, mayor communications, Mayor Lesherman.
Good evening. I have a varied couple of things here, but one, a formal welcome to Councilor Lynch. I look forward to working with you going forward. And the last year, I have to note that Councilor Lynch, as a candidate, said regardless win or lose, he was going to stay involved, and he did. So to see you sitting here tonight is a testament to your stick-to-itness, but also welcome.
Thank you.
To the surface. I would also say that from the day that I was sworn in a year ago, which went very fast, I feel a little older than a year older, but it's been a privilege and an honor to serve the city, and every day it grows more. I would say that growth also has a lot of part to do with City Council and the ongoing relationship that we have had, up or down or all around. It's one that I hold very deep and with much respect, and I thank you for the last year, and I look forward for the next year. And I know in 2019 what is coming at us and what has been put before us is a joint effort, and I'm very much looking forward to just moving right ahead forward with everything that we have laid the ground for in the last year. In 2018. I'll be announcing details of the state of the city that I will be presenting to the public, hopefully in the next week. We're kind of getting some details and timing, so there's a lot of other things going on in the city. I don't want to have to compete for time. Tonight in the packet, I have put forward the appointment for the city's first Community Relations Committee. I'm very excited to do that and very thankful for every resident who inquired about possibly serving, as well as each applicant who put forward an application. A lot of the conversations I had, not only with members of the council, but of the community around the purpose of that committee, and to see us so close to actually that work getting and taken underway is exciting, as well as with the recent events in our conservation land. It's with heavy heart that I am reminded that this work is needed, and that committee's purpose serves not only to address but also elevate to another permanent level in our municipal government a conversation that mutual respect and dignity, fairness, and equality are at the very core of our government. And it is not something that we are just reminded of when something so ugly and hateful as what we have seen happen in our conservation land and in other places in our city. I do thank those of the Pasquamic Trust for stepping up immediately to remediate the damage done, as well as several members of the community that have stepped forward and said with unequivocal language that this sort of behavior as sentiment and action has no place in Easthampton, and it is repelling. That said, with heavy heart, a little more upbeat. Chief Motter was hoping to join us tonight. He is under the weather, but he I wanted to announce that for the first time in 8 years, we have been accepted and are participating in the Student Awareness for Fire Education, as well as the Senior Fire Education Awareness Program. We've received 2 different grants to forward that work, and we introduced it into our community. I'd like to thank the chief for taking the initiative and reinitiating with the SAFE program, and he will have more details exactly what the grant money will be used to towards the end of the week in a press release, and of course will make himself available to answer questions from the council. I will remind the council and public that on Thursday, January 10th at 3 p.m. in the Public Safety Conference Room, the Easthampton Police Department invites everyone to the swearing in of our newly appointed Sergeant, Kyle Gribby, and Patrol Officer, Haley Gaudette. And that is there. The other announcement that will become more formal with the placement of a legal ad is our 2019 public forum to identify and prioritize our community development strategy. The city has been very successful in the community development block grants that we've gotten over the last several years, and every year we have a reprioritization meeting, and that will happen here again on January 9th at 6 p.m. Legal ad has gone out, as well as press release and more details on the planning Facebook page. And I would encourage members of the council and general public to come and speak their mind of what we should focus on in the coming year and years. Last year's forum results, as well as our community development strategy plan, is on our planning website. And lastly, as we get closer and closer to budget season, and if I've learned nothing in the past year, that really budget season is every day of the year. And if I do forget that, I have a finance department and auditor just down the hall to remind me it's budget day. So that said, one of our big concerns, and something we're always watching for the best use of municipal dollars, but I would say equally, in my view, is also the best care and quality healthcare product for our employees. I think it is something that underscores the commitment we have in the city to taking care of our residents and our employees. I think it's a key retention and attraction factor for city employees, which is more and more competitive. On the budget side of it, it's a deep indent, and there's a lot of changes going around all sectors of this health industry, but for municipalities, it's exceptionally poignant and very topical. I asked Joe Shea, Executive Director of the Hampshire Insurance Trust, to come and walk us through some major developments and where we are as a city. We're a member of the Hampshire Insurance Trust with several other municipalities in Hampshire, Franklin, Worcester County, am I missing a county? And Hampden County, which really gives us great leverage. But there are very clear definitions and channels of which we as a city can access the trust, and what the trust has really placed us in a strong position coming into the fiscal year. That said, the material is in your packet, but I'd like Mr. Shea to come to the podium and just walk us through a very top-line overview to set the table for further discussions around health insurance coming forward. Mr. Shea?
Good evening. Again, I'm Joe Shea from the Hampshire County Group Insurance Trust, the insurance director, and just to really follow up on the budget end. The City of Easthampton spends about $6.5 million with the trust with your health insurance, and it covers about 650 subscribers. That's both retirees and active subscribers. So again, it's a large budgeted item for the city. I believe I was here probably 4 or 5 years ago just to give an overview of the trust, but I'm sure there's a number of new counselors since then. Hampshire County Group Insurance Trust is your insurance company. Basically, we're a self-insured entity, so self-insured meaning that the trust itself takes on the risk for any losses or profits that the trust actually incurs on a year-to-year basis. We have 69 municipal groups that participate. As the mayor said, it's in Franklin, Hampshire, Hampden, and Worcester County. We're the second largest municipal joint purchase group in the state behind Maya in regards to the number of units that participate with the trust. Like I said, we're self-insured. We make all the decisions on the benefits. We make all the decisions on the premium. We hire Blue Cross Blue Shield. All of our subscribers have a Blue Cross Blue Shield card, but it's really private labeled, where we utilize Blue Cross Blue Shield contracts with providers throughout the state. But again, we assume the risk. We'll utilize them to adjudicate our claims. We'll utilize their actuaries to give us some advice and let us sort of know what our claims are looking like as the year progresses. The way the trust is set up, there's a 9-member executive committee that Melissa here from Easthampton is on, that I report into. And then each of the 69 municipal groups that participate in the trust also has a voting share. And that makes up the Insurance Advisory Committee. So basically, I report into the Executive Committee, make recommendations to the Executive Committee, and then the Executive Committee then makes its final recommendations to the Insurance Advisory Committee. And they make the final decisions on both benefits and premiums. So that's just the high-level overview of the trust itself. In your material, I believe you were given 1 or 2 years' worth of financials. You have the June 30th financials, June 30th, 2017. Really, the biggest or the most important line item on that is the very last line item, which is the total net position or unrestricted reserve. As of June 30th, 2017, that was $18.4 million. What that $18.4 million represents is our unrestricted reserve, basically our piggy bank that we've built up over the years. Again, we collect premiums. We pay out claims. We pay Blue Cross Blue Shield to adjudicate those claims. We have a reinsurance program in place to protect us against any large claims. And at the end of the day, as of June 30th, 2017, we have $18.4 million greater than the liabilities that we know of at that point in time. That $18.4 million, again, is our piggy bank. That is viewed as, again, the trust is in very, very good financial position, which is unlike a lot of the trusts locally around here, where if you follow the paper, last year, Amherst Pelham Trust basically hit financial problems and actually, for all intents and purposes, went bankrupt, and they had to abruptly change who their carrier was. They were set up just like this particular trust, the Hampshire Trust. But again, they basically sat pat and did nothing for a number of years. They didn't raise rates. They didn't adjust their benefits at all. And then they found themselves in a position that they basically chewed up all of their reserve in a very, very short time period, and then found themselves scrambling, trying to figure out how to insure their employees. Page 3 of the packet is just an overview. And it's the page that there's a number of columns, the first one being trust, and then what I try to do is a comparison of what the trust benefits are compared to a number of the other carriers that are out there. One of them is the GIC, the state plan. State employees are on it. There's a number of other municipal groups that are also participating within the GIC. Also just listed, again, the City of Westfield and the Berkshire Health Group, which has, again, a joint purchase group similar to the trust, the Hampshire Trust. The trust itself, over the last couple of years, has been talking about changing some of our benefits, where the current benefits that we do have is a very, very benefit-rich plan. There's the office visit of either $15 or $20, depending if you're in the HMO or the PPO. A $75 copay for an emergency room, but other than that, there is no out-of-pocket expense except for pharmaceuticals. So again, if you went into the hospital, it costs you nothing under our current plan. If you had outpatient surgery, it costs you nothing. There's no copays or deductibles. Over again, the last few years, we've started having these discussions about making some benefit changes, just primarily because that piggy bank that I referred to that was at about $18.4 million, was as high as about $27 million 4 years ago. So we've chewed through about $7 million worth of our piggy bank through claims being higher than the premiums coming in the door. So that precipitated the discussion of what should we be looking at, what should we be doing. So again, those discussions were do we start tweaking some of the benefits? And over the last couple of years, we did start discussing and landing on what some of those benefit changes would look like. What we were trying to do was avoid any high-level medical deductible, but we were looking at making some copay changes where hospitalization, we would have a copay for hospitalization, a copay for outpatient surgery, a copay for imaging. And again, it was done basically for a long-term approach, is to sort of tweak the benefits. That would allow us to make that piggy bank last that much longer, and also let us utilize the reserves at a slower pace and not utilize $7 million over a 3 or 4 year time period, but to actually draw that number down to probably more in the $16 or $17 million range over a longer time period. So again, the mission really is to make some benefit changes, which would help with the premium increases, to slow down any premium increases and allow the premium reserve to last a little longer. And that's sort of a very high level, I guess, overview of the trust and what we're trying to look at in regards to any benefit changes that we've been under discussion that we would really like to implement. We were hoping to do that in July 1st of 2018. There was a lot of pushback by a number of unions, so we did delay those changes, but we are still having those discussions now and are hoping to have these changes put into place for July 1st of 2019.
Thank you very much for the information.
Any questions on the trust itself?
The problem is that because this was not on our agenda, I don't think we can deliberate, have too many questions here,
Okay.
because it becomes an open meeting violation.
Oh, okay.
So, but thank you very much for the information, and I'm sure that the finance director, the mayor, will keep us abreast of any changes. Councilor?
May I ask if we can follow up with your office for the questions we
Oh,
might
certainly.
have?
Yes.
And how would we reach you?
J. Shea, so JSHEA, at HampshireCog.org. So HampshireCog is one word, .org.
And phone number?
584-1300, extension 142 will get you directly to my phone.
Thank you.
Councilor Riss?
Just a comment, we are lucky enough to have one of the executive members be our finance director, basically his boss. So
Correct.
if you guys have questions, counselors, I would direct them to Melissa first, because I think she would be very capable of answering them, especially how they relate to Easthampton. And I have to comment, having been around when we were thinking of joining the GIC, saving some money, I was turned around on it. I was looking at that as this is a very costly and very lucrative plan as compared to other private employers. However, I would reinforce what the mayor said. It is really a very valuable retention and recruitment tool for employees, because they see the kind of healthcare benefit they get, and they're thrilled to become an employee of the city of Easthampton. And over time, I've noticed that the cost of this plan is not excessive when compared to what you might get for other cities. Lesser plans, lesser benefits, but very similar costs like the GIC and other things. So I just want to make a comment. I have come around to agree that this is the best way to go for our city, and we're very lucky the Hampshire Trust is in a financially stable position. So I just wanted everybody to know, if you need questions answered, Melissa is a very good source.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to open public hearings.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes. Councilor Riss.
Thank you. We have first on our agenda the $33,000 request, which is split between free cash and retained earnings, to buy a new DPW vehicle. This vehicle is a request for a Ford Explorer, requested for its performance and its size for the DPW head. Another reason, a primary reason, is that the Ford Taurus, which was available to the inspectors, is no longer available and would not pass inspection and is off the road. This vehicle would be the vehicle the DPW director currently owns, would go to the inspectors. We did delay this in hopes that our ordinance, which is a policy ordinance regarding vehicles, fuel efficiency, and our green community hope, would be looked into. The DPW director did send us a comparison. This comparison was for light vehicles currently on the state bid program. And it should be noted that that program does save a considerable amount of money. The Finance Committee recognized that it is a choice between saving funds over the years of saving with regard to fuel efficiency in hybrid technology versus the cost of those vehicles. It was the Finance Committee's contention that products that make comparison to this to meet the performance requested by the DPW director and the mayor are simply not available at this level yet. At least they're not, except for the Toyota Highlander, which is very expensive. The Finance Committee voted 2-0 to approve the vehicle as requested. I'll ask the director to come up. I'm sure you have questions.
Good evening, Joe Puchinsky, Director of Public Works.
Anybody?
Is there anything more you'd like to add to what Councilor Riss said?
Councilor Riss covered it completely. If there's any other questions, I can try to answer them, but
Councilor Derby.
So, it's my fault that you had to write this, because I wrote the ordinance. And I think the last time, when we bought this vehicle, which it's not very old, right?
2016.
Okay. I guess I was defeated at that point because we had never really pursued the ordinance in any meaningful way. And I think that's too bad. So I guess that's my statement. And then my question is, how often do you use the vehicle to transport equipment where you have to put down the seats and fill the trunk?
I have equipment in there on a daily basis, just like the fire chief does or the police chief does. I can stop on the job and I have equipment in the vehicle already. It's not like I go get it and put the seats down, and I'm not using it to transport people. I'm using it to transport equipment that I need in an emergency basis.
Okay. So is it safe to say you don't drive around with 4 people in the vehicle very often?
That's correct.
Okay.
Councilor Gomez.
Thank you, Mr. President. How you doing? A few things. So we're replacing the Ford Taurus, right?
The Ford Taurus is dead. Yes.
So we're buying, we're trying to buy as a SUV because that car is not working,
That's correct.
right? So that car may average 20 miles per gallon. It's 27 in highway. So if we buy a SUV, we're going down. Usually they do 18, 17 miles per gallon. The ordinance per se is about going green, and we're not going green anywhere here. If we are replacing a car, why wouldn't buy another car instead of SUV? If that car was working for 7, 8 years, fine. I don't know why we're buying now a SUV. Can you give us any reason why? Because last time we approved a 4x4 pickup truck in emergency to use that pickup truck with a plow to clean everything. So I don't see why we need to buy now another SUV 4x4 when we bought that before.
The Ford Taurus that was used by the inspectors was passed down from the fire department. And in essence, that was the wrong vehicle for them to start with. That was a vehicle that was, again, had a little bit more mileage out of it, so it was put in there. But in talking to the building inspector, he needs a vehicle to go around with in inclement weather and also access job sites. That was very difficult to do with the Ford Taurus. So the Ford Taurus was the wrong vehicle in the first place. This corrects that.
I disagree with that, but.
Any additional questions? Councilor Riss.
We did make the comment ask if a CRV was available, but the mileage isn't a very large savings compared to the fact that I don't think, am I correct, you said they're not available on state bid to get a smaller Escape or Honda CRV type vehicle?
That's correct.
And it wouldn't be large enough to do your job, that's what you said.
Like I said, I've got, the back hatches are filled with equipment, just like the police chiefs and the fire
Okay.
chiefs.
I just want to make that comment.
But
I can go
when
back
you-
to Councilor Peak first, so I'll come back. Councilor Peak.
I just want to make sure I understand this correctly. So, you did a little, pretty thorough cost benefit analysis here. And so am I getting from this that a comparable car that, or vehicle that would be able to do this would be this Toyota Highlander, but it would just cost a lot more?
Correct.
Okay, but it would be, theoretically, if if we did that, that would be able to do the work that needs to be done.
That's correct.
It would just, the base cost of the vehicle is higher to the point that it would offset the fuel savings.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for doing that.
Councilor Gomez. Did you still have your question?
No, that's good.
Okay. No other questions? Okay, thank you, Director. Anyone from the public who'd like to address the council on this appropriation? No. Okay, Councilor Risks.
I move that the city council approve the following appropriation, $33,000 to be transferred from free cash, $11,000, and from retained earnings, $22,000, for a total of $33,000. To be transferred to DPW administration vehicle account, $33,000, to fund the purchase of a new DPW administration vehicle.
Second.
Second, I would like to make the comment that I forgot to say. If we were to buy a vehicle strictly for the building inspector, we would not be able to take advantage of retained earnings, which is strictly an enterprise free cash account, which allows the vehicle to be split between two accounts because it is a water department enterprise vehicle as well as a DPW highway vehicle. So that's important to note. Just want to make sure I didn't say that before.
Okay, so now we have a motion second. This is an opportunity for councilors if you might want to say anything else before we take a vote on this.
Sure. I looked this over. It looks thorough. I think that the cost here is correct. And I looked over the language of the ordinance, and I understand the logic behind all of this. I guess the question that I would ask of this body is, if we are only ever going to purchase fuel-efficient vehicles if it saves money, then what's the point of even having this? I mean, the base cost of these things is always going to be more. I think that there's a potential value in investing those things to do our part in just the general preservation of our environment. So I absolutely see what the director's saying, and I respect that. But I do question the point of an ordinance that says we should buy electric vehicles or hybrid vehicles, but only when it's cost efficient to do so, given that in the history of hybrid vehicles, I don't believe that has ever actually been the case.
Okay, Councilor Kwasinski.
I had the same questions, and that came up in the subcommittee earlier today. So I think the issue is, yes, we want to be able to save the environment by investing in the vehicles that make sense. And we have an ordinance to do that. The question becomes, are there applications and uses that we have needs for that don't apply to the ordinance because it just doesn't make sense? The fire equipment.
Absolutely.
You're not going to have, okay, you go to the SUVs for the police department and for the highway department, the water department, to be able to get in the snow and out to sites. Okay, so we need SUVs, and maybe the SUVs aren't comparable, and I think the director has given us good evidence of the financial cost difference here. We have a choice, $7,500 more, plus the cost of extra batteries for the hybrid, which will run out. So it ended up being a 13.2 or 13.7 year payback period, not including the batteries. Okay, that's one level. The other question is, does it make sense to have an ordinance? I think it does make sense to have an ordinance for those applications that are appropriate, and certainly to have the mayor's vehicle. I'm not sure the mayor needs a vehicle. If we have a vehicle. Well, maybe, listen, I'm looking at your next year's, at the Capitol, at the next year's. So any vehicle that we have in the city that would have those types of applications to travel, to go across the state in good weather, to do things, to go to other communities. Also, inspectors. Sometimes I think there are certain uses that would be appropriate to have a small hybrid vehicle. So I don't think we should eliminate the ordinance. I think we should look at each case to determine whether the cases make sense. The difficulty becomes when we get the hand-me-downs. And we do get the hand-me-downs from one use to another use. That's why we had the Ford Taurus that didn't make sense for the application. If we have hybrids and certain uses, I think we should keep the ordinance in place.
Councilor, I got Councilor Gomez, I'll come back. Councilor Gomez?
Thank you, Mr. President. A few things. First, global warming is real. We have to fight that. And since I'm here, being a year, thank God, I didn't see any change when we're buying vehicles. So I think it's time. It's not about how much it costs the first time when you buy a car or SUV. Is about how much we can save this planet. And as can you see, yesterday was 50 degrees outside, and this is winter. Same when it's summer, and when it's in the tropical islands, it's cold there now. So this is real. I think it's time that we have to put this ordinance in place, enforce that ordinance, because we have it for a reason. Global warming is no joke, like our president of the United States think it is. It's no joke. And we had to do our part as a city. We have to start doing it, and we have to doing it now.
Councilor Rist?
I totally agree. But in my view, we have a fiduciary responsibility to taxpayers, and that has to be weighed against that. Also, I disagree with Councilor Peak. Hybrid technology and electric vehicle technologies costs have come down, and there will be vehicles. In fact, I believe Councilor Derby told me there is interceptor vehicles being developed that are hybrid or electric for the police department.
2020.
When they're available, we will get them. And this ordinance should stay in place, because then we can enforce it when they are available. But until that time, I can't go out to a taxpayer and say, why did you spend $7,500 more to save the planet? That's my money, that's the taxpayers. I'd have to explain, well, we decided saving the planet was more important than spending the money. And we could argue that, and I think that's a good argument. However, I have a problem with it when I know the technology is coming. And I think once those interceptors come in, the police department's vehicles, which are constantly handed down, will become vehicles that will be vehicles that are green, and then they will leave us green vehicles for the other members of our departments. This was a tough call, because I totally agree with Councilor Gomez. Global warming is something. And yes, we can get smaller vehicles for the inspectors, but I agree with the director. A Ford Taurus, hand-me-down from the police department, they got rid of them because they couldn't get around in the snow, and they got SUVs. And the inspectors have to go to work sites that are muddy and not ready to go. And we need them to be able to do their job, so we have this efficient way of getting vehicles to them. Rather than buying new vehicles all the time, we transfer them down. So I say the ordinance is appropriate, and I say that it will come sooner than we think, that we'll be able to purchase vehicles that have the technology that meets performance requirements. So that's where I was with it. I think I had to vote yes because of the fiduciary responsibility I have over our taxpayers. On the other hand, saving the planet is huge. So that was a tough one, but I had to make that decision.
Well, I saw Councilor, are you still?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think everyone here has made some very good points. I agree with Councilor Kwasinski in the sense that we do have to be prudent about what applications we were looking at for the requested vehicle, but am I misunderstanding that there is potentially a vehicle here that meets the application standard? It's just more expensive, right?
It's more expensive.
$7,000 to be more ecologically conscious, save the planet, and support the legislation that we've passed previously in the city. And I think we're gonna be waiting a long time if we wanna enforce this ordinance for hybrid and electric vehicles to come down to prices that are gonna be equitable with standard fossil fuel vehicles. So I think it's important to take the opportunity, and I agree with you, we do have to be fiscally responsible, but I also think we have to be ethically responsible. And so I think this is an opportunity to do so. That's just my 2 cents.
Okay, Councilor Peak.
I just wanted to, Councilor Zaret said some of this. The police cruisers that'll be hybrid will enter the market eventually, and that'll be great. When they do, they will likely be more expensive than the ones that run off fossil fuels. There is currently a vehicle in Director Pipchinsky's analysis, the Toyota Highlander, which he said tonight would in fact meet the duties of, or would perform the duties that this vehicle would need to perform. The question, and I don't have an answer for this because it's a difficult question, I don't think there is a perfect answer, is do we spend extra money to do something that's environmentally responsible? And everyone's gonna have to make their own decision on that. There's winners and losers no matter what you do in these sorts of things. I completely understand someone disagreeing with, or deciding that, that's cheaper. But what I would say is that if we are waiting around to the point that hybrid vehicles are in fact cheaper than non-hybrid vehicles, we're going to be waiting for a long time, and when that day does come, there won't be a need for an ordinance, because obviously we'd do that if it was more effective, or it was better for the environment and also more cost effective. The question is whether in the meantime we want to spend that extra money, which yes is the taxpayers' money, we need to think very carefully about how we spend it, whether we want to spend that extra money in order to do our part in trying to slow down the gradual erosion of our planet. And I don't have the perfect answer there, but that's where I am.
That's a great discussion. Any more on this side? Any questions?
Yeah, I'll
Councilor
jump in.
Derby?
I guess, you know, my issue here isn't, it goes a little bit beyond to the application of the vehicle. I think that the vehicle probably doesn't have to be a large SUV. I think that we have plenty of vehicles in the DPW stock that can carry gear. I think that since 4 people are never being driven in this vehicle, that the seats could be down, and if their equipment is needed to be brought places, it could be left in the trunk if you don't need to take 4 people places. So I think a smaller SUV, if all-wheel drive was necessary, which I don't necessarily think it is. I think, you know, if you looked at the Ford Fusion, that's $26,000 hybrid, and hybrids are notoriously good in the snow because of the extra battery weight. So not having all-wheel drive in a hybrid actually is acceptable, because you don't need all-wheel drive in a hybrid because the low center of gravity because of the batteries. You know, so I guess that's part of my issue, is I'm not convinced that this is the only vehicle for the application.
Okay, any more comments? This is a interesting discussion, and I can honestly say, however the council rules, I can understand. So,
Can I make a comment?
yeah.
I believe we need 6 votes to approve a supplemental appropriation. I am correct, am I not, Barbara?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So maybe we'll just do a roll call on this one, please. Is that
Yes,
possible?
please.
Oh,
All right, Peg's not here. Salem Derby.
No.
Omar Gomez.
Nope.
JP Kaczynski.
Yes.
Bill Lynch.
Yes.
Joe McCoy.
yes.
Tom Peak.
No.
Dan Rist.
Yes.
Owen Zaret.
No.
So we have 1, 2, 3. We have 4 no's. We have 1, 2, 3. Oh,
4 yes.
it's a tie.
It's a tie.
The
One,
motion's
two,
defeated, it had to have
Motion's
6
defeated.
votes.
Okay.
Just a comment, it'll be up to the mayor to come up with a different appropriation either for the building inspector, says they have no vehicle now, or whatever she chooses, it does not mean that we can offer any other suggestion. We don't have the appropriation ability. Moving on.
May I also make a
Council.
quick comment on that?
Yeah.
If the option, if if brought to us as an option for a vehicle that isn't an SUV, that may also make a difference. So I would keep that possibility open in whatever proposals you come up with.
Okay, moving on, Councilor Rist.
The following 3 appropriation requests are for moving funds from our free cash to stabilization accounts. And I must say that they are all similar in their requests and provide us with stable fiscal responsibility, improve our cash savings accounts. So they're all the same. I'll just do one at a time. The amount requested of $110,000 is requested for our OPEB stabilization fund. We have $900,000 in it now. It's the OPEB stands for Other Post-Employment Benefit, Retirement Benefits, Unfunded Benefits. If you have questions on what this trust refers to, I ask you, Finance Director, to explain it to you, but it is a way of protecting us in some degree against our unfunded liability to maintain retirement benefits for the retired employees.
Do councilors have questions for Finance Director, or are they familiar enough with these appropriations we do? Okay, anyone from the public who would like to address the council on this appropriation? Okay, Councilor Rist, entertain a motion.
The amount requested, I move that the City Council approve the following appropriation: $110,000 to be transferred from free cash, $105,000, retained earnings, $5,000, to be transferred to OPEB Stabilization Trust Fund 86, $110,000, to provide funding for the city's share of OPEB Trust according to the city's financial policy.
Second?
Okay, a motion, a second, to approve the supplemental appropriation of $110,000 for the OPEB trust. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
The next appropriation of $200,000 is similar in that it provides free cash funding of our general stabilization fund. After this is approved, we will have $2.6 million in stabilization. And to make the long story short, that demonstrates to our bonding agencies, and we're about to bond $60 million, that we are a stable community, and it reduces the rate that we pay, and as a result, we save a lot of money for our taxpayers when we have to bond that kind of money. So it is excellent that we continue to do this. The Finance Committee voted in favor of this 2-0.
Okay, any questions for the Finance Director on this appropriation? Anyone from the public who'd like to address the council? Okay, Councilor Rist, entertain a motion.
I move that the full council approve the following appropriation. The amount requested is $200,000 to be transferred from free cash, $200,000 to be transferred to General Stabilization Fund number 84, $200,000 to supplement the city's General Stabilization Fund.
Second?
Okay, motion, a second, $200,000 supplemental appropriation to the General Stabilization Fund. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
The next request is for $150,000 for a similar purpose. We established a few years ago the Capital Stabilization Fund. This is to keep funding in our stabilization account for major capital purchases, such as a major fire truck, which we wouldn't fund under 1 year. For instance, after this is done, we will have $1.8 million, I believe I'm correct. Am I correct on that, Melissa? Okay, but I'm pretty sure that's what we said a couple of weeks ago when we did this, after we did it. So it is again a stabilization move, and we approved it as well in the Finance Committee.
Any questions for the Finance Director on this one? No? Okay, anyone from the public? No, Councilor Rist.
Request is hereby made for the approval of the following appropriation: $150,000 to be transferred from free cash, $150,000 to be transferred to Capital Stabilization Fund number 85, $150,000. The amount requested will be used for the following purpose: to supplement the city's Capital Stabilization Fund.
Second.
Got a motion and a second for supplemental appropriation of $50,000 to the Capital Stabilization Fund. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
Back to the Department of Public Works. They're asking for $50,000 every year. We ask to, the DPW is replacing water meters, to have radio-operated water meters. This will get us to about 90%. There's 5,000 water meters in the city. This pays for 250 meters. This allows people not to be intruded upon, and their water meters can be accurately read by a vehicle on the road. It also improves the accuracy of the reading of water so that people are paying their fair share, and some meters are too old and they're not correct. If you have questions on this, but it has been done. One of the big questions we asked is, pretty soon we're gonna have to be replacing the first ones we did years ago. So we're still replacing, if I'm right, Joe, we're still replacing the older meters. We're not getting around to replacing recently done radio meters. And if you can remind me, how long do these last?
Well, there's 5,000 meters, roughly 5,000 meters in the city. We replaced maybe 4,100 of them, so we got about 900 left.
Right.
And while we are replacing mostly old meters, we are having to go back and replace one or, a small amount of the newer ones, whether it's just the radio read part or the meter itself.
Some of them have to be repaired.
Right.
Okay.
Any questions for Director Well here? Okay, thank you, Joe. Anyone from the public who'd like to address the council? No? Council Rist.
I move that the city council approve the following appropriation: $50,000 to be transferred from retained earnings, $50,000 to be transferred to DPW water meter replacements, $50,000. The amount requested for the following purpose: to replace all older meters still in use with meters that are compatible with the new radio reading system. This will make meter reading more efficient. The appropriation will provide for the purchase of 250 meters. The cost of a meter is $200. The city has 5,760 meters in the system, with 1,125 that are not radio read.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second for approval of $50,000 for water meter replacement. Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
The next appropriation is also from the DPW. This is for DPW handrail and grading improvements at the wastewater treatment plant. Worker safety was something that a recent study which looked at a lot of our infrastructure targeted, and this is a dangerous area, so part of the capital improvement under infrastructure was to improve safety, and this is what the request is all about.
Joe?
Also approved by the Finance Committee.
Joe, do you mind, can you explain a little bit more what these railings are?
We have many tanks at the wastewater treatment plant. Some of them are deep as 20 feet. There's railings that go all around it. The railings don't meet code anymore. The guys are working there every day, all day, all kinds of weather, whether it's snow, whether it's rain. The last thing you want is to have somebody fall in a tank that's 20 feet deep with an aerator that's spinning, and bad things can happen. But the big thing is it was identified as a deficiency in our integrated water resource management plan. And as a safety thing that was identified, it was automatically went to a top priority as to something that has to be fixed.
Okay, thank you. Any additional questions for the director? Okay, thank you very much. Anyone from the public who'd like to address the council on this appropriation? Okay, Councilor Rist.
I move that the city council approve the following appropriation. The amount requested is $29,600 to be transferred from retained earnings, $29,600 to be transferred to DPW influent channel improvements, $29,600 for the purpose to install new handrail and grading, as well as replace damaged grading for worker safety.
Second.
Okay, motion a second for the $29,600 supplemental appropriation for handrail grading installation and replacement. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
The next is for DPW second firefighter safety improvements, also for safety. My notes are inefficient. Joe, can you explain this one? Something about our 1970 clarifier doesn't meet code. I'm not quite sure what I wrote down.
Well, the first one was for railing around the influent channel. This is for railing around the secondary clarifiers.
Okay.
The secondary clarifiers is the one that's, the tank's 20 feet deep, that's probably 30 feet across, square, and it's got this big spinning aerator that is part of the process. And again, it was identified as a safety hazard for the workers being down there and walking on those grates in all kinds of weather.
Okay, that's correct, that's correct. I apologize, I forgot.
Any questions for the director? No? Okay, thank you. Anyone from the public? Okay, Councilor Riss.
I move that the city council approve the following appropriation, $25,100 to be transferred from retained earnings, $25,100 to be transferred to DPW secondary clarifier safety improvements, $25,100. For safety reasons, this project would install a new guardrail where the wall is less than 42 inches above grade.
Second.
Got a motion second to approve the supplemental appropriation of $25,100 for wastewater treatment plant guardrail installation. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
Mr. President, I move the public hearings be closed.
Second.
Motion second to close public hearings. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes. Okay, where do we leave off? I believe finance, Councilor Riss.
I'm not done.
Oh, yeah.
The CPA committee is going to investigate the legality of whether or not we can help the Conservation Committee, and I'm making this statement under finance because I am also the chair of the CPA committee, whether we can help the Conservation Committee fund any repairs that they need in the awful experience at the conservation area that Councilor Zarek mentioned. Astronomic Trust is a volunteer organization, and they only have so much funds, and we taxpayers through the CPA paid for this. So I would like to tell the committee, the council, that I am going to do this to try and find out a way. We may not legally be allowed, but it is repair and maintenance of a conservation area already paid, so I don't see why we couldn't. But I'll ask them if they need help. Anyway, we will meet next week to discuss the new business that I will read in a moment. I also want to make a motion to set a public hearing for both the city ordinance amendment on the pay plan Exhibit B COLA effective and the $20,048.87 to fund that COLA pay increase for the next meeting at 6:15 in these chambers.
Second.
Okay, motion second to set public hearings for the pay plan Exhibit B COLA as well as the $20,048.87, January 16th, 15 p.m. these chambers. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
I'd also like to make, here it is, supplement, first reading and move to finance the following appropriation. The request is made for $38,371 from free cash, $38,371 to be appropriated to unused vacation time account, $8,176.61, sick leave buyback, $23,848.44, in overtime account, $6,345.39, for a grand total of $38,371.00 for the following purpose: to cover the cost of Sergeant Dominique Serino's retirement effective January 7th, 2019. I move that this be sent to Finance Committee for review.
Second.
A motion and a second to move to finance supplemental appropriation of $38,371 concerning the police department employee retirement effective. No questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion
I
passed.
also make a motion that we set a public hearing for the same appropriation, the next meeting, January 16th, at 6:15 in these chambers.
Second? Okay, I'll second it.
I second.
Oh, okay, you did.
I did.
Okay, so, setting a public hearing for the supplemental appropriation of $38,371 for January 16th, these chambers. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
And we'll be meeting next week at 5 o'clock. Councilor Lynch? downstairs in room 1.
Okay.
Thank you.
Public safety, Councilor Derby.
Thank you, Mr. President. We did meet I think it was last Friday, or
The 21st.
it was the 21st, to talk.
Oh, yeah.
It was,
never
I think it was
mind.
21st.
You're right.
To talk with citizens around concerns of pedestrian safety. It was a robust and well-attended meeting. Some good ideas were put out, and I think that the new committee will try to take those ideas and put them into action to improve the safety of our crosswalks in the meantime while we wait for some of the grants that are coming in. And so as we move on, I think that that's something that's going to be a particular focus in the committee. I did want to just say that our normal meeting time, which is the first Tuesday of the month, will be February 5th, and it will be at 5:30. I also want to just let people know before our next meeting on the 16th of January, I'm hoping that we can meet at 5:40 to do an organizational brief meeting so we can elect a new chair. That concludes.
Okay. Appointments, Councilor Gomez.
Thank you, Mr. President. We met today at 5:30 p.m. and we have one appointment and two reappointment. I'm gonna make a motion to accept the appointment of Casey Corsello to the Agricultural Commission for the expiration date of 12/31/2021. She served before and she was a member of the school committee. She's really involved in this community and she's really interested to serve in the Agricultural Commission for the city of Easthampton. Like I said, she served previously in the committee. She was a really good school committee member. And she is one of the owner of the Corsello Butcheria, and she's really involved. I make a motion.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept Casey Corsello for Agricultural Commission. Term expiration 12/31/2021. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
We have two reappointments. One is the Denise Riggs to the board ECA Plus. The expiration date is 12/31/2021. We don't have any information documented, but Mr. President knows them. He talked in the subcommittee about her, and she is really good serve. Pretty sure she live in Northampton, that's what you said? Southampton. But she's been serving there. Mr. President talked really good about her. So we passed this in the subcommittee 2-0. So I make a motion to accept reappointment Denise Rigg to the ECA Plus, the expiration date 12/31/2021.
Second. Okay, motion and second to approve Denise Riggs to ECA Plus. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
The second one is John Casey Douglas to the Economic Development Commission. He's the owner of Galaxy. He is a resident of Easthampton, and this is a good ad for this commission. So I'm going to make a motion to accept John Casey Douglas to the Economic Development Commission with the expiration date 12/31/2021.
Second?
Okay, motion second to approve Casey Douglas, economics reappointment to EDIC. Additional questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
We have new business. We have 11 new appointments for the CRC. That's coming to our next meeting. So I'm going to make a motion to move those 11 new appointments to our next meeting. It's going to be January 16 at 5:30 p.m. at the basement.
Second.
Okay, motion second to set for the 11 new appointments for the CRC meeting in January 16th, 5:30 p.m. Additional questions or comments? Is that a motion? Or that was just
Yes.
us? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
I need to abstain, personal conflict.
Okay.
Yeah.
One abstention. Does that conclude?
Yes, conclude.
Okay,
Sorry.
ordinance, Council Durgan.
Thank you, Mr. President. The ordinance subcommittee we'll be meeting next Tuesday. If you bear with me here, I'll give you the date. It's the 8th, and I think it's at 5:15, if I'm not mistaken. And we will be potentially addressing all of the items on our agenda. That concludes.
Okay. Property, Council Kwasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Property Committee has some exciting work ahead with the city, I think, in the possibility of having Easthampton establish a dog park in the city. And the questions would be, how do we fund it? Well, the great thing is, there is a grant available in Massachusetts through the Stanton Foundation that would fund the design costs of a dog park and would fund the hard construction costs of a dog park, about 90% of those costs. With regard to the land that's used, the city would have to provide the land in order to qualify for the grant. And that's what the Property Committee will be discussing at their next meeting. And I'm really excited about this because I think it involves lots of good possibilities. We can review what we currently own, and hopefully we could find a parcel that makes sense within what we already own. If not, there may be other possibilities, but if we already own it, let's put it to good use. That meeting will be on Thursday next week, the 10th of January at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
Or did we say 5?
We're gonna do 5.
We were going to do 5
Charging
because of special,
vehicles,
okay.
6.
5 o'clock. 5 o'clock on Thursday, January 10th. And the room, do we have a room location for that by any
I
chance?
think room 1, but
We think
Charter
room 1,
it's
we'll
on
have to check
it's
the,
on the
Charter
website
website.
already.
Try to review it at 6. Is that
it's
okay?
at 6, so we will meet at 5.
You'll be done by 1?
Okay. That goes
Just because I'm on that.
Well, but do we-
You can
okay.
move if it-
That's
or
all right.
not.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to interject?
Sure.
Do we want to pick a separate room just in case, if we go over?
Well, if we go
You
over.
can just move.
You can just move.
I'm in
You can
both-
just
on
move.
both.
No, I understand that, but,
I guess I could duck out, yeah,
I would
whatever.
rather a different room if you could, because I have to get ready and I always need time.
So we'll leave it to the to
I can
the
look.
clerk to assign a room that's appropriate?
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks.
terrific.
probably conference room.
And you'll let us know, and it'll be
yeah.
on the website, posted for the public.
Yeah, I'll just change it. It's
Okay.
already on the website.
Okay, thank you. Rules and Government Relations, Council Peak.
Thank you, Mr. President. So we're going to be meeting on Monday, the 14th at 6 p.m. At that meeting, we'll be discussing hopefully everything on our agenda. It kind of depends on whether or not the assessors will be able to make that meeting. We've been having some conversations about that. We definitely will be discussing the special municipal employee listing and the request to add new Council Rule 8B for special circumstances elections. We also will have a chance, I guess at this point, I'd like to make a motion to move Councilor Rist's request to adopt a new Rule 17D, which is for related to a city attorney request for opinion to rules and government relations.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to move to rules with a request from Council Risk concerning the procedure for requesting legal counsel. Additional questions or comments on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes.
And thus conclude.
And did we say that, just repeat again the date of our next meeting?
Monday, the 14th.
Okay.
The 14th. 6 p.m.
Okay. I think we went through all old
Charter
business and new
review,
business.
could
Oh,
we-
charter review, I'm sorry.
Minor
There's no
committee.
agenda.
Yeah, exactly.
We should put something in there.
Yeah, but review of the charter. We will be meeting on January 10th at 6 p.m. in room 1. We will begin our discussions of Article 5, Finance, among other things. If you're interested, please come. That's all I have to report this evening.
Thank you. So I think we went through everything. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion passes. January 6th. Barbara, I gotta sign things.